In today's video, we have some more NHL signings to discuss, as well as a quick rumor on Columbus Blue Jackets goalie Sergei Bobrovsky, and that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we have a variety of news to discuss today, including a waiver claim as well as some signings and a quick rumor on Sergei Bobrovsky. So let's get started here with the waiver claim. As we know right now, as NHL teams are trimming down their training camp rosters, a lot of these teams have to put a variety of players through the waiver wire in order to be assigned to their American Hockey League or lower level affiliate teams. The Philadelphia Flyers had placed forward Danik Martel on waivers for the purpose of being assigned to the American Hockey League club, and he was actually claimed by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, we've seen quite a few players go through the waiver wire here in the past couple days. So far, he's been the only one to be claimed. After Tampa Bay claimed him off the waiver wire, they did indicate in a release that they really had their eye on this player for some time, and when he became available on the waiver wire, they really wanted to grab him to make him part of their club. In case you're not familiar with forward Danik Martel, he was an undrafted signing by the Philadelphia Flyers back in 2015. He played his junior career in the QMJHL, put up some pretty decent numbers, but like I said, he did not get drafted, but was offered an entry-level deal after a tryout by the Philadelphia Flyers back in 2015. Now, since he's joined the Flyers organization, he's played 3 pro seasons, all in the American Hockey League, scoring 20-plus goals each time. I believe he even hit 25 in 1 year. So obviously, he's a guy that's kind of been on a lot of other teams' radar. He's a pretty solid American Hockey League player. He's a smaller player, but he's got tremendous speed. He's not afraid of the rough stuff, can play with some grit as well. So Tampa says that he really fits their mold of what they're looking for, especially for a bottom 6 type of forward, and they wanted to get him a chance here to play with their roster. Wouldn't be surprised if he actually starts the year on the main roster in Tampa Bay. Obviously, they do have some injuries as well to some other key guys like Ryan Callahan. So there should be a roster spot open if they choose to put Martel there instead of one of their youngsters like a Boris Kachuk, for example. So it will be interesting to see if Martel gets much playing time with Tampa or if he has to go back through the waiver wire again at some point to go down to the American Hockey League. So we'll see what he can do with his crack here at the NHL. He did play 4 NHL games before with the Flyers, but has yet to record any points. We have a few other signings to discuss today, including we finally have a signing here with the New Jersey Devils and forward Miles Wood. Now, as we know, this RFA has been dragging on here for some time. We've heard numerous reports indicating they were miles apart and had a really difficult time with the negotiations and coming to terms here. At this point, we had a quote from General Manager Ray Shero indicating that they had philosophical differences and they were quite a ways apart on negotiations here. So I'm not sure exactly what went wrong or what brought this all together. Obviously, as training camp goes further into it here and we're approaching the NHL season, it becomes that much more important for him to get into training camp, get some practice time to be able to join his club and be ready for the season opener. So either way, they got the deal done here. It's a 4-year deal paying him a value of $2.75 million. Obviously, Miles Wood just completed his entry-level deal, so this is his second contract. He had a pretty solid year for the Devils last year. Overall, I am a little bit surprised that he got a 4-year deal. I thought they might go with either a 1 or 2 year term because of everything that's gone on here. Things have been so tough to come to an agreement that they might go shorter term with the possibility of him earning a bigger contract here down the road. But I do like this deal for the New Jersey Devils. I think Miles Wood was a very valuable player for them last year. Certainly proved he could be a quality NHL player. Play up and down the lineup as well. Plays with a lot of pace. So he's certainly a pretty good signing here for the Devils. It's nice to see them finally get this done so they go into training camp with all their guys under contract. Now, the other contract we're going to discuss today here is Montreal Canadiens have extended forward Paul Byron also for 4 years as well. I mean, he's been a pretty good soldier for the Habs, scoring 20 goals, excellent penalty killer, great speed, gets a lot of breakaways. He's certainly been a tremendous help for that team. Not bad for somebody that they were able to claim off the waiver wire. Paul Byron's contract carries an annual value of $3.4 million. So overall, I think this is a very fair contract, an excellent deal for the Habs. Like I said, he's been a quality player for them. He can play up and down the lineup. He kills penalties, has great speed. He's hit 20 goals. Overall, I really like this deal for the Habs and Paul Byron. I think he's earned this contract to have a little bit more stability here. So obviously, he's entering the final year of his existing contract. So with the 4-year deal, he'll be under contract with the Habs here for 5 more seasons. Obviously, as time has gone on with the Habs and all the changes they've gone through, he's a player who's become that much more valuable. And when you have a guy like him who can play anywhere, really from your first line all the way down to your 4th line, he can kill penalties and do all the things he does. Like I said, I really like this deal for Byron and the Canadiens. I've also come across an interesting article here discussing the future of Sharks captain Joe Pavelski with that club. It comes from James O'Brien with NBC Sports. He's just discussing the fact that Pavelski is going into the final year of his contract. He was getting up there in years. He's 35 years old. And what will his future hold? Will they look to re-sign him? Could they look to trade him? Will they wait and let it go and see how the year goes and deal with it next year in free agency? what will the Sharks do with their captain here? Obviously, he's been a good soldier for them a long time, a very productive player for sure. But at the same time, we can certainly say that Joe is certainly declining a little bit on his play, getting up there in years, but he's still a very valuable member of their forward group. The article goes on to discuss all their options of what they could do with Pavelski, and at this point, I think it's safe to say that Joe Pavelski certainly will not hit the trading block. I think it's safe to say that San Jose is all in this year, trying to make a really strong effort here to win the Stanley Cup. Obviously, with their major acquisition here of Erik Karlsson from Ottawa, I think that's a safe bet. Last year, they acquired Evander Kane, signed him to a longer-term deal. They signed Logan Couture to a big extension this past year as well. So obviously, they've got a lot of their core players intact here for long-term deals. They've been acquiring a lot of guys lately like Kane, Karlsson, and to be honest, I don't think they're completely done. They still have the room here that they could add another potential rental situation where they could add another big name to their team, really to make an even more stronger run at the Stanley Cup this year. Would not surprise me at all to see sometime between now and the trade deadline, the Sharks make another move to add and make that team even stronger. I mean, obviously, you take a look at what they gave up in the Karlsson deal. Most of what they gave up didn't really harm the current roster a whole lot. Obviously, guys like Chris Tierney, Rudolph Balcers, Josh Norris. I mean, really, Tierney and DeMello were the main players off the roster. And based on what the other guys they have, they're certainly replaceable with what else they have there. So that roster wasn't really impacted a whole lot by adding a top guy here in the back end. So they still have a lot of assets in play here that they could certainly use to upgrade that group even further. It would not surprise me. So in terms of Joe Pavelski, at this point, I would probably be surprised if we get a contract extension. I think the more likely scenario here is that the San Jose Sharks and Pavelski play the season out, see how he performs. So obviously, they're going to make a run here at the Cup. We'll see how that goes for them. I think once the season comes to an end, they'll evaluate with Pavelski if he's still part of their long-term future and if they want to sign him to another extension or if it's time for Captain Joe Pavelski here to move on. Either way, the Sharks are going to have some fairly big decisions to make next offseason. Obviously, they've got Pavelski that's on a contract that's expiring. They've also got Joe Thornton on a one-year deal. So again, his future will have to be reevaluated depending on how his season goes. And then, of course, they've got Erik Karlsson now, who's in the final year of his deal. And they can't extend him until at least after the NHL trade deadline. So that would not be surprising if that goes into the summer as well. So there's certainly a lot of core players there under long-term deals. But they've also got some big names with some uncertain futures. So they do have some big decisions to make, and I think most of it will be made once we see how this season goes. So for me, Pavelski stays, plays out the year, and a decision is made before July 1, whether or not he returns to the Sharks lineup or seeks employment elsewhere. Now, the last thing I want to discuss here today is the potential future here of Sergei Bobrovsky with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So as you know, and likely as we've discussed here before, his future with the Blue Jackets to me is certainly uncertain. And when he was asked about it through training camp here, he certainly seemed very non-committal. And just kind of, if I was a Blue Jackets fan, I'd feel a little uneasy on whether or not your star goaltender will be staying with the team longer term here. Now, obviously, if he becomes available through trade, you know that being a top goaltender, there's going to be a lot of interest. The information I want to discuss here today comes from insider Elliot Friedman, who's a well-respected hockey insider and has a lot of valuable information. The information from Friedman comes on his most recent blog, 31 Thoughts, as well as the 31 Thoughts podcast. If you haven't checked either of those out, I highly recommend it. It's certainly very insightful information on really all teams across the league here. Now, what Friedman's indicated that if Sergei Bobrovsky becomes available, one of the teams that he expects to be extremely aggressive to going after him would be the New York Islanders. Now, I'm sure the Columbus Blue Jackets would probably be hesitant to trade him to a division rival. Obviously, that is the case with most NHL teams. But at the same time, I know a lot of times when you see guys up for trade, that they quite often try to get them into the other conference or whatnot. And I understand they don't necessarily want to play those players all the time. But really, I think they should look at it more so as the best deal. Either way here, the Islanders are certainly a team that's in transition after the Tavares situation this summer. They did sign Robin Lehner to a one-year deal. Obviously, the information that we've recently learned about Robin Lehner and his battles that he's gone through here the last number of years, it certainly looks like he's healthy and clean for the first time in a long time and should bounce back and have a better year. But at the same time, if they have an opportunity to upgrade to a guy like Bobrovsky, they're going to take it. And Leonard could possibly be used as a trade chip going back the other way, along with some other assets. As we know, the Islanders were a very high-scoring team last year, but they certainly struggled with the goals against, and that's a big part of that was their team defense as well as their goaltending. I know last year their goaltending got a lot of the blame, but they're certainly much more into team defense than just the goaltenders. The defense being played by their forwards as well as their actual defensemen wasn't very good. It was one of the worst in the NHL, and was also a big part of that. The Islanders often faced way too many shots as well. So as much as the goaltending did not help matters, they were certainly by no means the only part of the reason why they gave up so many goals. Obviously, a huge upgrade like Sergei Bobrovsky in net would really make a major difference to that team moving forward. If they can retain a lot of their other forwards right now, along with their youngsters that they have in place to jump into the lineup, they very well could come close to scoring as many goals as before. And if you put Bobrovsky in the net to kind of shut the door and help with those goals against, that team would suddenly become a lot more competitive. So the question I have for you here today is, if the Columbus Blue Jackets end up having to trade Sergei Bobrovsky, do you see the New York Islanders as being a viable destination where he could go and really help that team move forward? So that's all of our news and notes here for today. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts down in the comment section on these signings, as well as the Bobrovsky and Pavelski information. So make sure you leave a comment before you go. If you're new to the channel here as well, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.